Hey everyone, welcome back to Miss Mythbuster with Kaiwalya. Today we have very interesting topic and interesting speaker with us. So today's topic is, as you might know, how to build a Web3 startup as a student. And Web3 is like a booming industry. There are many myths going around Web3 recently, and many conferences. One actually happened in Goa this year. So we will be all getting into what is Web3 and answering all your questions. And make sure you ask your questions in the chat so we can answer them at the end. Enough of me. Hey Sunit, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you for inviting me, Kaiwalya.
Hello, Sunit.
Hello,
Yeah,
can you, am I audible?
yeah.
Yeah,
Would you like to introduce yourself? Yeah, you're audible.
yeah, yeah. Sure. I'm Sunit Roy. I was a 2021 GSOC student in TensorFlow, where I worked with the Google Brain team to um, add latest library of TF-Lite in their NLP apps. Other than that, I'm also the community lead of Twitter developer community and Kolkata. And I also we recently organized the GitHub Field Day India BLR. And other than this, I also have a startup of my own, which is KitePay. We're working on crypto payments. It is quite like the Stripe of crypto. So currently there are multiple networks for doing transactions, but there are very few payment processors which have um, which lets you use all of the networks. So we are trying to build that. So that's it.
That's great. We will be deep diving in your own startup real soon as well. So, yeah, let's get started with it. So, first question, basic one. What is Web3 according to you?
So for me, Web3 is a decentralized version of internet. So currently, in today's internet, mostly the internet is dominated by companies which provide services in exchange of your personal data. And in Web3, the decentralized apps will run on blockchain, and this will be resistant. So these apps can't be tempered. The logic that will be written there, it will live there forever, and no one, even the person who um, owns the program, can't change it later. And it also allows everyone to participate without monetizing their personal data. So it's really permissionless. So this is what Web3 is for me. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great definition. Like there are like multiple definitions coming around Web3. Like
Hmm.
it's like getting many people are getting started and they are projecting their
Hmm.
understanding of their Web3. And it's always interesting to hear what a person thinks about the Web3 and how they take that definition throughout their journeys as well. So that's great. So next question. Uh, who can get started with Web3 and what are prerequisites? So might be many people here who are here to see like how they can get started with Web3,
Hmm.
learn Web3 and get more opportunities with Web3. So maybe we would like to hear about
Hmm.
prerequisites and how you can get started with Web3.
So for getting started in Web3 development for techies who are into development and coding side, you mostly need basic of programming knowledge, programming language that you need to know, basic computer science fundamental knowledge. Other than that, you mostly don't need a lot of prerequisites. A lot of people think that they need to know Web 2 before starting in Web 3. That's not true. And in Web 3, in every Web 3 product, there will be two main categories. One will be a DApp, which is a decentralized app, which is the client that the user will interact with. It is quite like today's Web 2 apps like Facebook and WhatsApp, which user interacts with. So there, the technologies that will be used, which will be quite similar to the Web 2 ones. Like for Android folks, they will be still developing the apps in Kotlin. Folks will still be developing the apps in Dart and all, and the web application will still be developed in JavaScript. So the client side will be same in even in Web3, but for the server side, for the code that will run on chain, that will be quite different. So mostly the logic that the difference between Web 2 and Web 3 is, in Web 2 you mostly have your data and your logics in uh, proprietary softwares that are not public computers. So in Web3, the difference that will have is you will write that code in a chain. So for writing those, you need to know a specific language that the chains get programmed with. So if you want to write smart contracts, the programs that are written in blockchains are called smart contracts. If you want to write smart contracts in Ethereum and Ethereum ecosystem, you most likely have to write those um, smart contracts in a programming language called Solidity. And other than that, there are many chains. Like I have my project on Solana, and Solana uses the Rust programming language. So that thing, the chain programming the smart contracts can be a little bit different for different chains, but mainly the client side, the dApp side will be similar to Web 2, and there won't be much difference. Just having a basic understanding of computer science fundamentals and knowing knowing a programming language is a good thing to start with. Yeah,
Thank you so much for sharing that. I hope many people got their notepads out to note all the points down, and many more amazing points still coming up because we are getting into how you can build a startup, Web3 startup as a student. As Sunit here has his own Web3 startup and is currently a student as well. So we would like to know more about it. Sunit, go ahead with the main
yeah,
topic, how to build a Web3 startup as a student. Go ahead.
yeah. Just give me a second.
Yeah, no worries. Take your time. So, a bit of a context, Sunit will be explaining entire process of building a startup through presentation, and at the end, we will be answering all your questions, and we'll be doing a swag giveaway. So, make sure you tag Sunit, me, community classroom in your tweets with your learnings, and so that we can pick swag winners and keep an eye on your DM. We might reach out to you for your swag giveaway.
Mm, mm. So just I have to quit it once in the stream, as Mac wants my system preference to be changed. I just give me a second. I just
Yeah,
checking it.
I totally get it. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, Sunit will be joining us back in a bit uh, due to the China some issues with his system. So yeah, you can drop your questions here and we will be sure to answer them. Also, if you are getting started with Web3, most probably you have heard about blockchain. So Community Classroom has a roadmap for blockchain and which is in-depth and built with the help of industry experts in this domain. So please make sure you check it out. And if you want to get started with Web3 and blockchain, this surely will be really helpful, and it is totally community oriented. So if you want to change or want some resources to be added, or if you find any bug, we are totally open to take your requests for uh, changing and doing the updations. And there are job portals and open source project you can contribute alongside. So keep an eye on it. Here we have seen it back with us.
Yeah, hopefully
Yeah,
now
yeah,
I'm
you can share. Yeah,
share. Mm, can you please add it at the screen?
yeah,
This,
yeah.
yeah. Are the slides visible? Hello.
Yeah, they are visible. Yeah.
Yeah. So we will be going through the startup fundamentals for Web3 startups. Mostly, this will be same. The just the technology is different, but the startup building a startup fundamentals is something that you need to know for building a Web3 or any startup. Um, for this, we will be going through the startup fundamentals. I will add something that is specific to Web3 that you need to notice. So first, let's talk about why you should not do a startup. So if you have seen a Hollywood movie, they are portraying it like it's quite glamorous. You will be your boss, and this is not only Hollywood movies. In a mostly people start their startup because they think they will be their boss, and it will be quite flexible, and you are going to make a lot of money and have a bigger impact than you can have as an employee. While it's partially true, mm, but it's also not true at the same time. So how that is possible, let me show you. So um, now people don't talk about this and the ugly side of being a founder. So this is one of the slides that I get from one of Facebook's co-founder. So again, he is quite successful, but um, he still points out this. So first, in the right side, you can see an article written by the economist, the entrepreneurs autonomous. So here they have added a graphic which is showing the entrepreneur is hiding under the desk, which says about the psychological pressure, the mental pressure that you get after running a startup. And the stress is quite more than you can imagine. And most people who most people who start startup, after doing that after for a few months or few after doing that for a few time, they mostly say that they haven't thought that this will be this tough. So by stress you will have the responsibility of your whole team, and who are betting their best years of their life on you. So if you take wrong decisions, and if you do wrong things with the company, not only you and your company is going to fail, also the employees, also the partners that are with you, they are also going to fail. So there will be lot of responsibility of on you to build this thing and take great decisions. And other than this, you will be when your startup grows, you will be always on call. So it doesn't matter if it's mid in the night, it is midnight, or is early in the morning. If there's something wrong happening, some bug, some error that is in your software or a software or app, you will be always the one who people will connect and try to get the solution from. So it doesn't matter if you are no, if you are on holiday and all, you will be always on call, and always you have to be ready for the call uh, for your startup. Other than this, fundraising can be also really tough. Sometimes the macroeconomics, like currently, even if you have a great startup which with great analytics, you are still not going to get the great valuation that you want, because the whole market is down. And on the flip side, when the market is right, even if you have a not that good startup, you will going to get a lot better valuation than your um, than you need. So, and after a time, you will also get a unwanted media attention. It's not going to happen with us at this early stage, but after a time, you are going to get a lot of media criticism and all. So also how Hollywood films tries to portray it. You can say this. This is uh, one of the scenes from the Social Network film that was on the Facebook startup building, portrayed how Mark Zuckerberg built the whole Facebook. So this is how they showed the startup building thing, which is quite funny, because people don't party like this in startups. Startups are quite stressful, and this is what actually is really real photo of Mark Zuckerberg. He is coding all the day, and he just want to show that don't disturb me. I'm busy with clients. So now this is another famous scene from from the Social Network film, where one of their co-founders are of Facebook are doing the algorithms in a window and writing them there. Well, that doesn't happen. It's not like this in startup. The reality is quite like this. You will be just two three people who are waking up early, or staying awake till night, and just coding in front of your laptop and be there forever like. So that's how startup looks in early stage. So it's not quite glamorous, first point. Then another thing, people say that it's quite flexible, you can work whenever you want. So for the flexible thing, you can think you are going to be an entrepreneur, and you are actually going to get some flex time, to be honest. So you will be able to work 24 hours a day whenever you want. So you can work for 24 hours in a day whenever you want. That means you have to work for 24 hours. And this is one of the investors from Silicon Valley which who said this. And you will be always on call, you will be the role model. Like a employee can have a bad day, so he can take a rest, he can take holidays, so he can go out, but you won't be able to do that. You just have to keep going, and if you are not giving your 100%, the employees can sense it, and they are not going to, they will be also really demotivated seeing you. And you will be always working anyway, whether you are feeling motivated, stressed, unhealthy and all. Mm, so that's really true. And another thing is, you will make a lots of money, people think. Let's see if you where you can get more money. So let's take example of these companies. First, in the left side you can see Dropbox. It is a slide from 2014, so the valuation are have quite changed. Dropbox is quite bigger company now, but it's still a good slide to compare with. So a real company, Dropbox, was 10 billion dollar valued, was valued at 10 billion dollar. And even their 100th employee, which usually gets, if you have good experience in the industry, gets 10 base point. 10 base points. If you get 10 base points in Dropbox, where while Dropbox will be $10 billion in valuation, you will be worth $10 million. That's quite a lot. And if you were one of the first 100 employees of Facebook, your 10% 10 BP base points would be worth $200 million. So that's like big startups are not worth this much. So that's quite a lot of money. And on the other hand, if you're not going through the employee route, you want to be a founder and start something of your own, then let's take uh, take take some companies like Uber for pet sitting. So here you will be theoretically, let's say your startup will be valued at $100 million, and you are a founder, and after, let's say, series C and all, you will have 10% of your company. So your 10% of your company will be worth uh, uh, $10 million. And again, the risk will be really high, and most likely you are going to fail. And already established company like Dropbox will be better if you want to make money through this. And let's take another explanation example of Uber for space travel. Quite, you can say, Blue Origin is similar to this. So their theoretical valuation will be $2 billion, and you as founder will have $200 million. And Uber for space travel will be quite tough, and the founder who will be doing this is most probably not watching this right now. He is probably going and building this. So building this will be, as a founder, will be quite tough. And being the 100th employee of Facebook and earning $200 million through this will be quite easier than being the founder of the Uber of space travel and earning $200 million through this. So financial reward is not quite the most intelligent way of starting a startup. Initial reason to starting a startup. Then maximizing the impact. So now let's talk about the impact. So a if you are joining a late stage company which has tons of user base, and if you want to make impact there, or if you want to make a impact with a founder and starting it from the zero, from the scratch, the odds are that you will have more impact as an employee of a big user base, um, because they do have a massive user base. They have already a great infrastructure that you can really use in your benefit of building the product and making it impactful. And you will be also working with quite a established team. There will be a system which you can use and do a lot of things. And some example of this is Brett Taylor, who is the 150th employee of Google, created Google Maps, which we use regularly, which is quite impactful product, I do believe. And another guy named Justin Rosenstein, as an employee of one 1900 of Google, uh, created the prototype of Gmail chat that we used to use, and still some people use. If you have worked with any Google employee or Google organization, you have to use the Google chat there, and one of their employees has created this. And the same guy, Justin Rosenstein, was also the 250 250th employee of Facebook, and he led a hackathon project which created the like button that we use regularly on our Facebook post. So you can create impact as a employee as well, and most likely that will touch more user base and more number of people to be. So when you should start a startup? So you don't have financial benefits, you don't have that kind of impacts, and you don't have flexibility, and the stress will be quite high. So what is the best time to make a startup? So the best reason will be you are passionate about the problem. So you have to face a problem that's really bothering you, and not something that you have make up. So take time to figure out the real problem that you are passionate about, and are ready to work for your next at least 3 to 4 years, and try to find out how you are going to solve that problem. And first have the idea, then the company. Lot of the people try to make a startup just for sake of having a startup. First having a idea which really makes sense is the first thing that you need, and after that you can think of it as a startup. First having an idea, then having a project, and then you can go and build your startup. So now if you have a idea, how you are going to evaluate it, and how much time should you take? So the common mistakes of evaluating a startup idea is jumping into an idea without evaluating it, if it's good or not. Like you got an idea yesterday and you want to build a startup today. That's not that's not a good idea for sure. And another bad thing is waiting for the perfect idea forever. So some people just wait for the perfect idea, and no one knows the perfect idea before starting the product and before giving it to the users. So that is also not a good idea for waiting for the perfect idea. Idea should be a starting point, and your product and customer feedback will be the thing that really defines how you will be going through forward with your startup. So so where you want to be is, here in the right side is a person who wants to pick the base, who wants to pick the idea that comes to his mind, and here in the right side there is a person who wants to wait for the um, perfect idea forever. So you want to be in the middle. You just don't want to work on an idea for your next of at least 2 to 3 years, to give an idea to 2 to 3 years without evaluating it for few weeks at least. And you also don't want to wait for evaluating the idea for years, so that will not work for sure also. So, and also remember, the only way to know for sure your idea is good or not is to launch the prototype, or having a prototype and giving it to the customers. So here you can see graphics where first person is saying build cool stuff and launch it, and in the middle he is thinking, still looking for perfect startup idea. And after he got a little bit expert on this, he is saying that build cool stuff and launch it. Even big companies, like which are multi-billion dollar companies, they always launch betas to see if users likes it or not, and after that they make it mainstream and add it to their main product, add those features to the main product. So another problem is, while evaluating your idea, is sometimes people find a solution, not a problem. And the solution will be, and this is a term in the startup world, is solution in search of a problem, SIPs. So for example, AI is pretty cool. So how can I where I can apply it to? So even for web3, if you think that web3 is pretty cool, you should not directly go like, web3 is pretty cool, I want to apply it somewhere, so let's build a startup.
What you want to do is evaluate the problem. Like in Web3, currently the global payment system, if any of you have uh, made cross-border payments, I mean international payments, the payment is quite rough and friction, with lot of friction. So blockchain can be a great thing for thing there. But if you want to add blockchain everywhere without having a real problem, most likely you won't be having any customers, because it's just a imaginary problem that you have made up. So try to find a great problem, then go for the solution. And solution can change over time. Like what people used to use for communication 100 years ago, it's not the same today. But the problem is still there, which is how I can communicate with the other fellows. So fall in love with the problem, not any specific solution. That will be another advice. Yeah, fall in love with the problem, not the solution. So another thing that you can say is, by the way, these slides are from one of the biggest investors in the startup ecosystem. So most of the advices are from them. So you can think of this as a good point of reference. And this is something that I would love to have, if when I started my startup 6 months ago. So 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 how can you evaluate a startup? First, you if you are starting a venture capital business, I mean startup, so you have to see how big is the idea, how big it can be. So you have to find the how big is the market. Even if you have the best idea to solve selling candles in your local area, that won't be a venture capital business, because the market is pretty small. Even if you are the only person who is ruling the market, you are earning very less, which is not something venture capitalist or startups look for. Next is, if the founder is market fit. Founder market fit, this is the term in startup world. So do you have any insights related to this problem? Like example can be, you are making a payments company or finance company, and you have worked in finance world for 5 6 years. I know one of the companies had a founder which worked 15 years in the shipping industry, and then he built a company which is related to shipping, and he knew all of the problems that was in the shipping industry. So that's something that you, if you have, that will be great, and this will be really great for you. And you also, you need to be sure that uh, um, you are solving an accurate problem. So just like your problems can't be broad and all. Your if you're trying to say that you want to correct the whole financial system, that's a really broad kind of description. You want to be accurate, you want to specify what you really want to do, and what do you have insights on this. So if you have any insights on your problem, the problem, how can you solve it? Like if you have used Airbnb, they knew people want to give strangers want people as strangers to come to their home, and if they stay with renting their place, that's something people are willing to do. That's a great insight. So these are the three things that are great if you use for evaluating your idea. And you can rate yourself and your idea through 1 to 10. And after that you can do the average, and you can get how good your idea is. And how big is your idea? It should be more than $1 billion, because venture capital businesses are like this. and you are in the early stage, you may be feeling how can I do this big $1 billion businesses, but this is something how startups work. So another sign that your idea is can might be a good is something that recently become possible through technology or anything like this YouTube is a great example of this. Internet just become a bit cheap and more accessible to people. So and after that time YouTube just started, so people started watching cat videos on YouTube, started uploading videos on YouTube, and this is something that only become possible after that time. It was not possible um, before that. So for crypto you can for web3 specifically, you can think of stable coins as one of the things that recently become possible. As before stable coins, the value of the cryptocurrencies were quite volatile, so making it a way of payment was not a good idea. So stable coins are quite a big uh, uh, good thing that make a lot of things possible. And also think of your idea as a good starting point. Mostly you are not going to have the whole how your business model will be, how you're going to recruit, how you're going to go for the later stages in your initial time of getting your idea. uh, think of your idea as a good starting point and start building on that. Try to change things how you can change later. So after that, when you are done with the idea, you do have a good idea, you have a decent amount, you have evaluated it, you have decent amount of trust on it, then you can build a team for yourself. So co-founders, firstly if you can have 2 or 3 co-founders, that's the great thing in a startup. So being a solo founder is quite tough. Not only because you have to build all of the things by yourself and also sell it to the users and also pitch it to the investors and also do marketing and all. I'm personally a solo founder, so I do feel this. Also there's a big emotional weightage on building a great startup. Most of the days you will be facing failures, things are not working, most of the things are broken. So if someone there is as a co-founder, you can share it with him and he will be facing the same problem. So you both will be able to share it with each other. But if you don't have a great co-founder, by co-founder I mean someone who is who has who has skills which contrast with you, which complicates you. Like if you are if you're a technical guy like me, you want a person who is great at marketing, can really help in hiring and business and all business development. And other than the skills, you also want someone who you can trust. As building startups is at least if you're good, if building a good startup and it is successful, it will be for 10 years at least. You can't leave it before that. So it's like marrying someone. So you have to also think of that even if they lack in skills, are they someone who will be sticking around with the product, who will be there while things are not great. And if you can't find someone like that as co-founder, it's better to start off with yourself and later try to hire someone. But initially having no having bad co-founders is even worse than having no co-founders. So another thing that co-founders should be able to build the prototype themselves. This is something that investors really look for. If you have a technical person who can code, if you're a software startup who can code, if you're a hardware startup who can build this hardware, and this is something really that investor look for. And you initially you don't want to outsource initially. A tech company never should want to outsource their technical things. So you should be always want to be able to build the prototypes yourself. And another thing, mostly people think having more number of people in their team is something that should be they proud of and all, and that's the thing. But initially what startup incubators like Y Combinator, which are really prestigious startup incubators, they don't want they don't advise you to hire that quickly. Initially the co-founders should be doing all of the things, and because not only they will be able to learn how the wheel actually runs, how the startup actually runs, but they will be also not burning the money, and later that they it will help them a lot. So the goal of a it's taking time to, yeah. So after you have you are done with your team, you have co-founders, or you have decided to decided to start your company on your own. Then what you have to do is launch your MVP. MVP is minimum viable product as soon as you can. Get your initial customers, and talk to customers and get feedback how customers are receiving the product, are they willing to pay, what the iterations that they want, and iterate as fast as you can to improve the product. So for building up MVP is the minimum viable product, which is like a prototype, working prototype, which you can showcase to your customers and your investors. So building this is quite a milestone, because there's a lot of business guys who start startups but can't really build MVP. So this is something that investors will really appreciate if you can build a MVP by yourself and by your team. So for building a MVP, some people take months and months, but what you do want it is to time box your specs. Here specs means specifications. So you want to build MVP in weeks, not months. You want to get feedback from customers as soon as you can. So building it fast will be really great. And also while you are brainstorming the specification, always write them in any of the note taking application that you use. Most of the times founders um, just forget what the specification they thought of earlier. And if your specifications are taking longer than your deadline, try to cut the specification and focus on the main features. And that way you will be able to get a feedback on your main features, and also you can then work on your next other features for the later update also. And another thing which is quite important is don't fall in love with your MVP. So many people want that your MVP should feel like iPhone, and that's really magical. Most startups MVPs are not like this. That's something that people show on people see on movies, but and big organization shows. But most startup MVPs are really basic. They mm, 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 they just show the minimum thing that they can do, and they're quite normal. So don't try to make it too magical. Just try to do your utilities that you are trying to do with your product. So this is something people face. This is one of the slides I took from Y Combinator. So if I don't launch a great product, my startup will die immediately. This is something people say, and people feel. But the truth is, trust me, you are not Steve Jobs. So you can just uh, you can just lower your standards for um, launching a product, and this is how startups do. They don't ship products like Google and Apple. They just launch product which are quite basic, and they iterate over that. So they also get the customer reviews, and they also work on the startup while have launched something on the market. So one of the example is this Airbnb. So if you have used Airbnb, Airbnb is one of the biggest company startups these days. So here, this is the example of Airbnb, how it used to look. So it's quite basic, and initially, yeah, and initially they didn't had payments, so you have to give the payments physically through cash, no map views. You have to have a bed with yourself to have a Airbnb, to get into Airbnb. So, and it was only for conferences. So it's quite basic that you can see. So after you have launched your MVP or you are working on the MVP, next thing you can do is, so the next thing that you can do is to do the business models and pricing. So this is something, me being a technical founder, or many techies will firstly struggle with. So this is something that you have to learn, but I'm going to give you a small overview of how to structure your business model, or think about your business model, and how to do pricing for your product. So this is important because founders get frustrated that investors won't fund them and their business won't grow. And you know, more, there are a lot of startups which don't have any business model, uh, great business model figured out yet, and they are just relying on investor funds, and that's not quite a good thing, because you have employees that you have to pay, and you have to grow your startup, and there will be recessions and all. So you have to have a revenue of your own. And often because and often there are lots of startups, they don't have a proven business model. So a lot of startups want to experiment with their business models, but this is in startups, you only innovate in the product, but the business model and the management and legal things that you can replicate. So that's there, you don't have to do much of innovation in that sector. You just can read about the big businesses which they have, which business models they have used, and how they have done the management and things. So you don't need to experiment here. And there are only handful of business model which are used in billion-dollar plus companies. So you should copy them, as they are proven and they are really scalable. So um, and they are, so these are the 9 business models that are really proven, and that I really recommend, and big investors really recommend. One is SaaS, the most famous one for these days. So in SaaS, you are basically a subscription-based software provider. You will be providing a utility function for the software that will be giving to businesses. Mostly SaaS are used by businesses, and SaaS charge uh, monthly money for using their software. Then there is a transactional business model, and so transactional business model is something Visa, Mastercard, and all payment and finance companies like in India, Grow, Zerodha uses. So transactional is you do transaction through their network or their provider, and they as you are using their infrastructure, they cut up platform fees. That can be a percentage, 1%, 2%. And there's the marketplace business model, which Amazon is really famous of. So in the marketplace, you really provide a platform where there will be merchants, and there will be buyers, and you will be just providing the platform, and you will get a platform fees for using your platform. So you will be just a platform business, you can think of marketplaces as. And then there's a hard tech business. So hard tech is, if you are not in the startup ecosystem, the hard tech thing is something that you are hearing first for the first time. So hard tech things are like, for example, SpaceX, the company Elon Musk is building. Another company is called Boom, which is building supersonic jets. So hard tech companies are basically really technical companies, which are really hard to implement. So these are long time investment that investors and founders do. Here you won't be getting any is any business revenue for many of your initial years. What you can get as your what you can get as money or business model is, uh, mostly your customers will be big enterprises, so you can get contracts or intent of contract, that kind of things, while you are building the projects. So these are some of the some business model that hard tech use, that enterprise, and they want to do contract with you after you are done with the hard technical problem. And then the usage based. So how much you use, it is based on that. If you have used Firebase, so it uses a usage based business model, which depends on how much you have used the platform of the service, and you have to pay on that. So it's quite similar to the transactional one, but it's most likely free on the when you start. After a point, you can after you upgrade, then only then you have to pay. So it's quite like a subscription based, but they count how many transactions you have done, and then they charge you. And there's the enterprise one. So big enterprise company, you can think of Oracle, who builds the Java software. And uh, biggest enterprise software is software company is Microsoft. So enterprise are basically companies which sell large contracts with big companies. So if your company sells to large businesses like Amazon, Adobe and all, then you are a enterprise business, and then you will be selling your software to those for a limited amount of time with the license, and this will be a business model. And then the advertising business model, which Facebook and all of the social media apps uses. So here you will be having your you will be having your users for free. The users will use your services for free, and then you will use your users data and insights as you for the advertisers who want to advertise on your platform. Then there's the e-commerce e-commerce business model, which is for if you want to sell on online just products, which can be e-commerce. And biotech is science based technology projects. So if you are in Web3, most likely you will be having a business model like SaaS or transactional or marketplace, the top three of this. And then after you are done with the business models, how the business models will be there. So then you have to price how much you are going to price your service or product. So and why pricing is so important. So pricing lets you know who wants your product. So free things can be we use a lot of free things, but if you have to if we have to pay for something, then we really want that product. So pricing is quite a good thing. If you price your product as you get to know who are the real customers who do need your product, or if even if they don't, you will also get to know that. So that's a really informative, the really important thing that you need to want. And you also get to know that how much they want it. So if you raise the pricing, will they still be using your service? So you also get to know this. And how much product, and you also get to know the how much your product provides them value. So if you price that, if they stop using their product, it means it is not providing that much of value that they are going to pay for. And it also lets you know that which channels you can use to acquire your customers. You can go through different channels, and uh, later you can get the analytics on that will say that how, which is the best. After doing the pricing, you can only then you can get that that which channels are really working, and where you can get, where you are getting the revenues from. So revenue is the most important KPI. KPI is key performance indicator for your startup, and that's quite important. And another common mistakes that founders do, and this is all from big investors that
Sunit,
I,
sorry to cut you off in
yeah.
middle, but like we are running a bit low of time, so maybe you can
Oh,
progress through
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
slides quite bit faster. Not
Okay.
getting you in hurry, but we can then take the people's question as well. So maybe
Okay, okay.
you can increase a
So
bit. Yes.
I'm doing this a faster, bit faster. So another thing, another common mistake that founders do is they are afraid to charge. Um, but charging is the most effective way to learn, as it tells you who are the users who are going to pay or not, which are the users most willing to pay, how much are they going to pay, even if they refuse to pay, that is even valuable. So another thing in pricing is you want to price not on the cost that you have while creating your service, but the value that you provide. So if you are providing higher value, then you can get better margin. And if you are just pricing it for your cost, then you will have a lower margin, and your business will be less profitable, and you will have less money to experiment with. Yeah, Apple is a great example of this. Yeah. So, and now if you are done with the pricing and the business model, next you want to focus on getting your first users. First, and users, not first customers. So customers are different than users. In advertising businesses, the users are not particularly your customers. Your customers are who are willing to pay you for your service. So for getting your customers, there are two things. For getting customer, first thing is do things that don't scale. You don't need to have a great scaling solution funnel initially for getting your customers. And second thing is you have to do sales. um, First, founders should do sales. I will tell you why later. And there should be a sales funnel. Initially you don't want to go through the same sales thing uh, multiple times. There should be a funnel, and you should be charging your customers. You don't want that free customers for your initial products. That is of no use. So for when I say do things that don't scale, it is really famous in the startup ecosystem, if you know. So those things that don't scale is a famous thing by Y Combinator. um, of, is a example of doing things that don't scale is Pinterest founder who was who acquired their first customers by going to a cafe and talking to the people over there and asking them to use their product. So this is not scalable, but that is really effective. So you can just recruit, just like you recruit your employees and investors, you can just recruit your first initial customers. And a myth about startup is, if you build it, they will come, that people think, but the reality is if you build it they won't come. You have to go to them and show what you have built. So you have to recruit them, as I have said earlier. Startups don't take off themselves, you have to give them a push by yourself. uh, so startup take off because founders make them take off, so you have to make them, you have to give your push by yourself. And then you have to manually recruit your customers. This will be, this will be uncomfortable as you will be talking with customers and all, but this is really great as you will be getting the direct feedback from the customers. And this is startup curve. If you want, you can just screenshot this. This is really important. So initially when we start our startup, we get really hyped up. This is the enthusiasm of a startup founder. You can see that in the start they are really hyped up. Then after starting the startup they really go down, and they go through sorrows, and they launch and they do improvements, there's quite up. And then there are quite ups and downs, and after a few time, if you are still alive, you are probably going to go up if you don't die. Hmm. And another thing, why you should do what should you as a founder do sales. In the right side corner you can see Steve Jobs, who used to do this. So founders should do sales because you know your customers, you get to know your customers. It gives you control over your destiny, so you know where you are going. And you also you also don't hire sales teams without knowing how sales works, so you can get to hire better sales team later. And and don't worry if you don't know how to sell. You can learn over doing this multiple time and trying to do that. And also you get to know the problem a bit more, and talking to the customers and all. So after this will be one of our last chapters. So this is fundraising. So for a venture back startup, you fundraising is quite important. So raising fund is the second hardest part of starting a startup after making uh, thing that people want. This is Paul Graham, one of the great investors, founder of Y Combinator, stated. So, but there are some myths about startup and fundraising. So first is startup fundraising is glamorous. So this is something we see in Shark Tank. This is the US Shark Tank, not Indian. So this is something that they show us, but this is something that really happens. So Shark Tanks and pitch contests are business plan competitions. They are just so that are not reality. And myth two, I need to raise before I start working on my startup. And again, you can start your startup whenever you want, but and you can raise money before even after with just an idea also. But you don't need to raise money before you start working on startup. Having a prototype is a better, having a prototype and team is better time to raise money. Even if you have some paying customers, that's even better, so you can get a better valuation on your startup. So another thing that startup Shark Tank teaches us is not true, is my startup needs to impress the investors to raise money. And that's not true. Investors are most likely do want to get convinced, not get impressed. So the best startups seem to be most terrible at first. So they know that good startups are not going to sound really great, but you just want to explain to them, not shell to them to impress them. So that's a bad thing. Try to just explain to them what you are doing. So there's a, if you are in crypto, and there's a thing called OpenSea, which is quite famous. So OpenSea, initially the idea behind OpenSea was marketplace for selling collectibles that only exist on the internet and can be paid for only magical money by internet. So that's a thing that you can see, which doesn't looks impressive idea for me, but it's something that become really big and got funded for it. So investors get bored when founders try to impress them, so you try to avoid them. And final myth is this is isn't for you. So uh, here are some of the realities. So fundraising is just a bunch of coffee chats and Zoom calls that you do. You don't need to raise money before you get started, so you can just start building a startup. After that, you can, it will be easy, even easier for you to raise money. And you don't need to pitch a fancy, don't need a fancy pitch like Shark Tank to raise money. People just make a product that customers are really liking, that's great. And raising money these days are quite easy, as there are quite template like contracts like safes and all, and that doesn't make you stick with law and accounting for a long time. You can just focus on building the startup and raise money as quick as possible. And seed terms, so you with safes you run the company. So, and you also don't need a huge network to run money. If you made a good product, investors are going to invest in you because they also want to make money. And even getting rejected is not that bad, because most big companies get rejected. Even Facebook got rejected quite a time, so that's not a bad thing. So also bootstrapping. What is bootstrapping? So bootstrapping is when you don't take investments and just build on your own with your own money. So everyone bootstraps at first, but bootstrapping forever sucks. This is something YC says, not me. But don't and quite true also. So bootstrapping is quite scary. You will always have the fear of getting shut down in the initial days, and you can't pay yourself. You have to do consulting, you have to do freelancing. You are working on a startup and doing consulting, you can't give your 100% to your startup. And there are very less chances of getting a big company while doing bootstrapping, as there are not very examples. So these are some resources that I really recommend, and that I really found in last 6 months really insightful. One is YC Startup School. Just go through this goes through the basics of startup, building a startup. YC Library, that's really insightful. Mostly any questions that you will have, they will have covered it. A16Z Crypto Startup School. If specifically building a crypto startup school like we are, so this is the startup school that they have run, and there are quite big persons that are in the startup school, like the CEO of Coinbase. So you can just go through this, and also Sequoia has a great um, a playlist on raising seed fund. So you can go through this, and these are the basic, simple overview of the basics. But just start building the product, and that will be the best thing. So that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really great and uh,
Yeah.
much in detailed session, to be honest. And I hope this helps a lot of people get their Web3 startups get started uh, from the
Yeah.
college itself. So you actually took the next section, which was common myths, and you posted 4 to 5 myths. So this is
Myth busted.
this is the section for our mythbusters uh, show. So yeah, let's take some questions from the chat, and
Yeah.
uh, this is. I hope you will be able to see the questions. So this is the
Mm.
first question from Siddharth. So why there are so many opportunities
Okay.
popping up in Web3 space?
So opportunities as there are opportunities for community peoples, also for the developers, also for the founders and investors and all, because it is quite a new space, to be honest. So there are quite a vacuum that needs to be filled. So this is quite the initial days of the whole industry of web3, and which is going to expand. So the industry really needs human resources, humans which want to be part of the thing. So right now there's a big vacuum where you don't have great smart contract developers and all. So if you find one smart contract good developer, you want to hire them, no matter how much he takes. So that's quite the reason.
Yeah, yeah, it's quite a new domain where people are
Mm.
getting to understand it better with every day. So obviously there would be much more opportunities coming along with this field. So great question. Uh, Next question is how can I start with open source in blockchain industry? So if you have examples
Yeah.
maybe or some tips for this.
So the open source whole blockchain industry is open source. So any chain, any big project, like even if you want to contribute to Bitcoin core that I recently contributed to, so that will be really easy for you, as mostly all of the projects in blockchain are open source. If you see a small error, like even documentation, try to make a pull request, and they always have really great active. I never seen any more active community than blockchain communities. So you can just even you can ask question in Twitter, there will be people. So just make a pull request where you see the code is not right. That would be great.
Yep. Thanks for asking the question. So next question is from Siddhant. Few months ago, there was something called Web 5, Web 6, and Web 7. What are those? So
So I'm not aware of five, 6 and 7, but the Web3 5 was announced by Jack Dorsey's company. Jack Dorsey is the co-founder of Twitter. So Web 5, I don't really understand. Is something like, I think, marketing thing, but do- I don't know about Web 5 and 6, but Web 3 is something that I do know about.
so it's good to say that it's like getting into
Mm.
conversation and still things are being discussed on that. So there's not many resources along with that. So, but great
Mm.
to have knowledge that something like this is getting discussed around the industry.
Yeah.
Another question from Siddhant. So, what's the difference between blockchain and Web3?
So blockchain and Web3 is quite similar, but the another question can be that what's the difference between blockchain and crypto, or crypto and Web3? So even for blockchain and Web3 specifically, the answer will be that blockchain is the technology where the Web3 things will be get built. So if you think of AWS as blockchain of today, and the Web3 companies and apps are the applications, and just change the AWS with blockchain, and Web3 applications, the dApp sites with the current apps with the dApps, and that will be the difference, which is quite small. But that another question can be that what's the difference between crypto and Web3, and that's a question. So Web3 is quite generalized, so any kind of computing that you want to do in decentralized technology, that can be Web3. And the crypto is just a specific implementation of Web3 cryptocurrencies.
Yep. Thank you so much for answering that. And we have this question. So, can you send
Mm.
resources to learn Web3? Maybe you can mention your top three or
Yeah.
top five resources
Mm.
which you know about Web3.
So, no matter which blockchain, mainly Web3 learning is quite depends on the blockchain you are learning it on. Most people are learning it on Ethereum. So, if you want to learn Ethereum development and want to get the great resources related to Ethereum development, mostly they have a great active Discord server, and they quite frequently change the learning resources over there. So if you go through that, and there will be quite some great companies, like I know mostly a company called Fragment, which makes really great learning resources. And even if you want to learn in other blockchains, most blockchains have a great Discord server, and you can get the latest learning resources from there, and you can choose between them which you want to learn. So that will be great.
Yep. And that's it for the questions I see. And people who are watching, please do make sure you share about this session on your socials, tag us so we can reach out to you for swags. And with this, Sunit, any closing remarks or any key points which people need to remember?
um the session was quite nice. So if you want to build a Web3 startup or startup in general, which is maybe you are searching for the how to build a Web3 startup, and this video popped up. So my main advice will be to build something which can be used by end consumer as soon as you can, and get the user feedback and iterate over there and take chances. You can fail, but who cares? Yeah.
Yeah, that was really great remark from your end. And thank you everyone for joining. We hope to see you in many more such interesting sessions. If you have ideas for many more sessions in different domains, let us know by tagging us on Twitter or DMing us or mentioning it in our Discord community directly. Thank you so much for joining and see you in the next one.